Narayana, 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 Narayana. So, knowing that there is really no separate veka, the same awareness or consciousness, be careful with these two words, people tend to use, and I also used in the past and suffered. When you use two different words with some notion in the brain that there is a consciousness and there is an awareness, you have already lost it. Whatever word you use is the same. You cannot establish Advaita by saying there is a consciousness and there is an awareness. At least that is not the true meaning of Vedanta. But I do see even great people using this differently. If truly the so-called awareness, let me be clear, okay? If the so-called awareness truly got bound into a human body and then behaves independently, then you may give two different words. But what is the conclusion of Vedanta? The conclusion of Vedanta is that there is really no such individuation of this consciousness because it is akhanda. It cannot be broken because it doesn't have limbs. It doesn't have parts that you can break them. So once this consciousness doesn't have any parts, either internal or external, then we say there is a tree and there is a cow. There is a difference. If you take a tree alone, there are branches, leaves, roots, stems. Two different distinctions, two different ways of distinctions. So this self does not have internal distinctions, or apart from it there is nothing else to show that this is self number one, this is self number two, so that you can distinguish them. Such thing is not there. And apart from that, this self does not have any attributes, any properties. How will I distinguish them? If I have a red shirt and a green shirt, you can say these two are different. But if I have simply something like this space, which doesn't have any qualities, how will I distinguish them? So the self is one. We are not, see, the approach we are taking is not investigation like the investigation of Shankara, where he simply directly goes to the words of the Upanishads and tries to determine the truth. We, at least myself, at my limited capacity of intellect and scholarship, I am not doing that. I am only trying to understand what has been proposed, and I am happy about it because it gives me peace, because I am focused on the peace. I am not the originator of the teaching. Upanishads are the originators of the teaching. That is why we salute them. Shankara we salute because he explained that to us. And now we find sense in it. How do we find sense in it? Because we are free from sorrow by the teaching itself. And when that teaching, in terms of the words that we can understand intellectually, are giving us so much relief, how much if that manifests in us by eliminating this individuality completely. That is what we are looking for. We are looking for fruit of Vedanta, means that this individuality should go forever. And the person should walk around in this world as if it is simply a toy, a mechanism where some key is there and it keeps moving about, but not really making anything. That's why we say there's no free will. That's what they say. People who know, they say there's no free will. It is just happening. Because there is no individual to say whether there is a free will or no free will. Basically, it is not the events that have disappeared. It is the center who claimed himself to be an individual around whom these events are happening. That entity has disappeared. Why? Because the bird which was on the branch chewing the fruits has as if merged into the bird which does not chew the fruits. Has it really merged? No. What has merged is notional difference, mistaken notion. Has the snake merged in the rope? No. There was never a snake. Snake appeared. Appearances do not go somewhere when you recognize. It is not that there is a snake that existed on a rope and when we put a flashlight, the snake went back to the place from where it came. The snake never existed before our seeing. The snakes did not go back to some place after our seeing the rope. So appearances do not come from anywhere, do not go anywhere. So the individual who seemed to be the center point, who is the controller, karta, bhokta, that itself is untruth. Vedanta would say kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam itself is untruth, as if saying that the individual exists. But here they are not. As long as there is a kartrutva, bhoktrutva, there is a karta, bhokta. There is a doer, agent, and an enjoyer. As long as there is ownership or agency and enjoyership, there is a karta, bhokta. But once this bird which is perched on a branch eating the fruits realizes its identity, not becomes one with the other bird, which is a Isha, with glory. It realizes it is truly that, meaning the person who was playing the role of a Bhima or a Kichika or whatever, Ravana, just remembers, look man, it's already getting time, my wife is waiting for me, Satyam is thinking. Satyam's wife is at home, oh this play is going on long. It was supposed to end at 9 p.m. It's now 11, still the play is going because it started late. His worry is not about the Kichika Ravana role he is playing anymore, but his worry is about his waiting wife at home, the Satyam's wife. Of course, there Satyam is also an individual, so he may have a worry. But here from individual he is becoming a non-individual, which truly he is. It's not an action or a story or a new role of becoming a non-agent. It's not from becoming a being to a non-being. Okay? Another being called non-being. No. It is truly that Sat Padartha, Sadeva Somyedam Agre Asit. Means before the manifestation, that Sat Padartha alone was there, and Tat Tvamasi, that you are. When the individual realizes himself to be that awareness which is passing through the three states, which is not connected to this body-mind, it is universal, imperishable, avyaya. So this is what is teaching. So I came back to the segment for the same topic because the whole purpose of teaching the tri-state analysis is to tell that you need to identify, even conceptually, that you are this Asanga Atma, which is not connected to this body. Whereas we think as if my awareness, consciousness is connected to this body. What Upanishad is asking you to do initially is that please know that what you call as the jiva, the consciousness which is identified with this body, is truly not connected at all. It only appears, and as Acharya Shankara says, adhyasa, or a superimposition. If you leave this help of Shankara, that it is a superimposition, but if you think this is a reflection or an avacheda or a containment within a container, then there is no mukti. The methodology of Vedanta will not work. The methodology of Mundaka, what is taught here, Jushtam yada pasyati anyam ishamiti mahima isham asya mahimanamiti vitashokaha. Just by mere seeing this, oh, I mistook till now that I am this limited waker. But after the three-state analysis, I am truly not the waker, but the awareness which is appearing as if it is identified with this projected character called waker. But this awareness of this waker is nothing but the true unconnected awareness, which I am. In knowing this, the suffering of Kichika is not mine, even though I may be playing the role of a Kichika. Because the awareness of that Kichika itself is a universal awareness. Of course, though we are taking very drastic examples. That is why Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in the Gita, Api chedasi papebhyaha sarvebhyaha papakruttamaha sarvam gnanaplavenaiva purujinam santarishyasi. Just by mere taking of this boat of knowledge, you will cross the ocean of misery, of sin. How is it possible? If the sins and the doer and the sinner is real, how will they simply cross them? Apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakruttamaha. Even if you were the most sinful of the sinners, if you take this boat of knowledge, you will cross the ocean of sins. Purujinam santarishyasi. You cross. It's only possible because you were never a sinner. You took yourself to be the sinner. So Gnana can help you to cross that. If it is an ontological error, if there is a material difference, you would never be free by seeing, by knowing. Here you will be free by knowing because fundamentally it is a cognitive error. It is a mistaken notion, mithya gnana. This is what is explained in the Avasthatraya. But Avasthatraya is presenting to you a way of looking at the entire experience of three states of experience of man. Any other state of experience, for example, I'm not dreaming, but I am not awake totally as of now, for example. But in the time when I'm very dull, etc., I may be reeling into some thoughts, but I'm not really able to act like the way actively now. Like this, there are many states, like the murcha, they say, right? I don't know what English translation. Unconsciousness of the kind. So there are many other states, but all of them can be put into one of these three states. When we are putting dream and the waking itself to be dream, rest all can be put in the same way. Because even that is the experience of the same universal consciousness. So fundamentally what it is telling us is to stay put. Number one, by Sravana alone. Because, for example, whatever few words that I could say with my limited skill, you could not have got it, even though these are written down in the Upanishads. In spite of listening to Upanishads on the same Mandukya, I haven't met a person, at least who is able to say a few words like I am saying, so that I could benefit. I am seeking people too. I am seeking company of people who know, but I don't come across too many. If you come across, let me know. Who is free from sorrow? That is the acid test. If somebody is going to tell me more better words in English or Latin or maybe French or German, it doesn't help me because I already know words enough. I have enough understanding. But we want to know that person who is free from sorrow. The sorrow that comes by identifying oneself to be an individual, the waker, for whose individuality has ever merged in the consciousness which is underlying these three states, who is just looking at this world as an appearance, not as a reality, as an appearance. Mithya means this appearance is mithya. So we get a lot of problem in the world. There will be people of other schools who will insult, who will argue and all that. A wise man, that's why he ignores. Like in the Gaudapada Garikas we see, he simply says, we have no quarrel with anybody, let them see, because each one is cutting themselves anyway. Vishishtadvaitin is cut by, or refuted by Advaitin, is refuted by another Dvaitadvaitin or a Suddhadvaitin. They fight themselves. We have nothing to quarrel with anybody. Because what we are seeking is that reality, universal reality, which is in these three states, as one alone. Just like the same consciousness pervades through all the characters of my dream, so also the same consciousness is through everybody whom I come to know in this waking state. They are no different. That there are gods in the heaven is also part of my world of imagination of a heaven. It's not that there is a heaven separate from me, which is not seen, because I have conceptualized even that heaven, and the beings of Indra, Varuna, etc. is also part of my consciousness only. And if I narrate a story of Indra and Varuna doing something, that is also part of my world of this mind. So as long as one stays put in this conclusion that he is the awareness and he is able to behave in that way without deviation, without vyabhichara, he said, by Bhagavan, for example, Sri Krishna, he said, Achyuta, means who does not fall away. Chuti means to fall. Achyuta means who does not fall. Meaning who is always put up in that awareness. And in all actions, all times, all conditions, he is just the same. That is why Bhagavan Krishna says, whoever knows is no different from me. Gnani tu atmaiva me matam. Gnani tu atmaiva me matam. My opinion is that a gnani is myself. Gnani tu atmaiva. Gnani is myself. Or you can say gnani is the self. Atma eva. Because he is talking himself as the Atma. Atmaiva may mean two things, right? Whatever way you want to interpret. But basically Sri Krishna is the self, and he says this Gnani is also Atma alone. Atman alone. So, I want to restate the statement because I know I spoke to somebody and I see, in spite of my saying 1,000 words, still they say, oh, there are two birds. Now I have to make an effort to leave the position of the first bird and become the second bird. Fool. That's not what it meant. What is meant is that there is only one, and that is never attached to these three states, and that is the only reality, and that you are. So in this understanding, when you look at from this 360-degree perspective, the appearance of every character within, including myself, should be an appearance. The emotions in this body are appearances. The attachment itself is an appearance, because really there is nothing attached to me. This is the avasthatraya, or discrimination between the three states, at least the way I understand, which is helpful to me, which seems to be the highest perspective. If any of you find it useful, I will be glad. And if you have any questions, let me know. If there are better expositions in the internet that you see or people you know, let me know, because I will be glad to listen to them and know more insights. Of course, I know I have my teachers, the teachers whom I follow, whom I learned from, whose hint helped me to discover something. And I think one other important topic comes to my mind in the same related. I would like to say that in the next 5-10 minutes and conclude it. So for whatever I said now is as it is taught in the Upanishads. For example, Mandukya says the same thing. Vradaranyaka says in 2-3 places about the dreamer. Kaushitaki says thus. And here and there in other Upanishads also. Though not an analysis exactly similar, but they are all interpretable in the same way. At least Mandukya people glorify as the one, and the Karikas of Gaudapada. Here in the Yajnavalkya dialogue, there is a Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Because we want to say that I want to understand that I am this awareness through the 3 states. In being present as the witness of the 3 states, the waker will disappear. The notion of a waker will disappear, should disappear. Coming back to the Sravana aspect is primarily addressing at the intellect, because the Upanishad is presenting a new way of looking at life, new way of looking and searching for the reality, and comes to certain conclusions. A person will have many objections to that, may have, will have. Now all of them will be resolved by using yukti or logic, taking your own experience as the basis, like the 3-state analysis did. Now I am convinced about it. I have no doubts on this proposition. But this doesn't liberate me. It doesn't make this waker appear as an object of my vision, I being a witness of these 3 states. It doesn't bring you to that, which people refer to as an aparoksha anubhuti, which is the basic test for the enlightenment, permanency of which is enlightenment. What do? Then Upanishad says manana, Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. I see tons and tons of problems with these 3 words. I have seen many people, whatever they can get there in their mind, they will teach you. Because Upanishad itself does not strictly define them. Neither Shankara does, an elaborate essay about it. Actually, for the Shankara method, you don't really care about it, because he has already put it in many places. By Adhyasa itself, he has solved everything. And then in the Upadesha Sahasri, you find some help, great help. What is this Nididhyasa? Mananam. Mananam is an important thing. So people say, oh, I have got some logic, some tarka in the Sravana. Now I sit down and work it out for myself for clarity. At least I don't buy that. That is not the one. That is not the one. Because how I can pass the Sravana stage with no clarity? That's what people are saying. You want to ascertain in Manana, for you want to clarify more. Even some of my past teachers use these words. Now I see them silly. You cannot cross a Sravana without having a determined knowledge. You cannot cross Sravana. Any logic that is needed has to be applied by the teacher with the help of the Upanishads and the experience in Sravana itself. At the end of Sravana, you must get out of it with a determined knowledge that all this is the self. All this is the self. Such a solid conclusion has to come at the intellect. That is the goal. But what happens? In spite of all that, my leg hurts, my pain in my feet, my hunger is there, thirst is there, disease is there, past memories are there. They're all causing pain. This is the problem of the mind. So what needs to be done is, you need to apply the conclusions of the Sravana for the symptoms of the mind. That is Mananam. This is not applying again, like a regurgitation, like a monkey does or a cow does. No regurgitation here in Manana. Because if I were to do the same thing that is done in Sravana in Manana, why there are two different states? Why there are two different steps? So you cannot duplicate anything done in Sravana in the Manana. Otherwise you have defeated the purpose of the precision of the Upanishad. So Mananam is an entirely different mode of work. Nothing to do with the logic. Nothing to do with any more remembering of the Upanishads. Tattvamasi again, that equal to this. Garbage. All that is concluded in the Sravana. Now what you do is, how do I get over this attachment to the mind? Based on the strength of the conclusions I made, I resolve it for myself. That this is an appearance. Suffering for me is an appearance. Pain for me is an experience. I have concluded that I am the untouched avyaya asanga atma. On the strength of what I have gained in the Sravana, I resolve the mental experiences at the level of mind, not at the level of intellect anymore. Here in Manana, I resolve the conflicts which try to tell me that no, go back and say that I am an individual. Even which I have refuted in my analysis in the Sravana for 3, 5, 10, 12 years. So in Manana, you just have to live your life refuting the proposition of the mind, identifying the experiences which are coming to you through mind, looking at them. I leave it there for the sake of time. And the third thing, nididhyasanam. So I have resolved that, okay, pain also I can suffer, because titiksha was taught in the qualifications. See, the qualifications, Sat Sampatti has got titiksha in that, forbearance. So only if you have forbearance, you can go through this Mananam effectively. Assuming you got through that, still it is hard to get over this body, because ability to sustain vagaries of life was part of the mind. But I am this body, that I am not able to deny. I can go through the ups and downs of life being a body. That's what I learned in Manana. Stabilized. But I still have a notion that I will die. How will I get over that? So nididhyasana is primarily focused on this identification of this body. Anything else is not needed here. If I do anything of the Sravana or Manana here, this step is a waste. So nididhyasana means, ni means nitaram, means continuously, without break. Didhyasa means dhyasa, dhyasa. Dhyasa, dhyasa. Means intense dhyasa. Intense dhyasa on what? This asanga atma. If I leave my attention on being a waker and I focus on this which is asanga atma, of course the thoughts will intrude. Then I leave them and come back to this asanga atma. This process of coming back to this asanga atma is making this body disconnection. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, eto eto nisthirati manastyanjalam astiram, etc. When it is asked by Arjuna, he says, vairagyena cha gruhyate, abhyasena ta kaunteya, vairagyena cha gruhyate. That is called Adhyatma Yoga in the 6th chapter. So nididhyasanam is nothing but Adhyatma Yoga. Coming repeatedly back to this asanga atman, not by any trick. Is just coming. Not by the help of Shruti anymore. Not by the help of Mananam anymore. You don't have to console yourself through Manana. Here it is an effort directly to center yourself as an awareness in which this body is an appearance. The last obstacle, that body identification. In terms of becoming an individual, it was the body identification which was the first step. Then it is identification with the mind. Then in the intellect. If you see, when we get up from the morning from sleep, that's how it comes through. Oh, I am this body. Then I am the mind, intellect. Now the reverse ways, you have broken from the intellect. Now you break from the mind by manana, and then nididhyasanam, you break that attachment or identification with the body. So with these words, I put a stop here. I hope some of these words are helpful. Please do share a request, though I thought I should never ask. But please share it with any friends that you may have. Maybe they will be helped. And if there are any questions from your side, let me know. Or if you have identified some faults in what I'm speaking, let me know. If there's anything that I can learn from you or others, I will be glad. With this, I leave. I thank my teachers, grace of Ishvara. At least this much I understand. I hope you too benefit. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu. Sri Gurucharanarpanamastu. Hari Om Tat Sat.